Hey, what's up, you guys? I want to take a few minutes here to talk about the current state of TNA. Basically, what we've been seeing lately with this main event Mafia storyline is TNA is starting to go in a different direction, a more serious direction, with a lot of that corny, campy bullshit being de emphasized. We see it with Eric Young toning down the goofiness in his character. We haven't seen the Prince Justice Jobberhood on TV in a while, so it does seem like there's an effort within the company to make changes to the way they present certain things, and I think that's good. That's absolutely the right way to go. The problem is that the product is still extremely hit and miss right now. I mean, they can have a really good pay-per-view and then follow that up with a mediocre Impact, and then have a really good Impact and then a not so good Impact the week after that, and the consistency is just not there. And a lot of that is the way they format the show. A lot of that has to do with bad time management, and a lot of that has to do with the writers just being in the wrong mindset. Basically, somebody in management needs to take a good long look at the flaws in the TV show, because they've had the 2 hour time slot for a long time now, and they're still struggling every single week to find that proper balance of promos, interviews, wrestling, backstage stuff. Matches are too short, there's too many interviews, backstage things get way too much time, but I've already been over the time management issue more than once. As for the formatting of the show, it's a big tip of the iceberg, but you absolutely have to stop going to commercial breaks at the top of the hour. On those rare occasions when you start 10 p.m. with content instead of commercials, the rating goes up every time. Because people who start channel surfing after their show is over at 9:57 land on Spike TV and they find something to watch. But if these people hit Spike and see commercials, they're going to keep right on surfing. And if you had been doing that this whole time, then I guarantee you would have hit a 1.2 a lot more often over the last year, because there were many weeks when you came really close and a better rating in the 10 to 10:15 quarter hour would have put you over the top. And that leads us to creative. Look, there's good things and there's bad things about creative right now. And I know a lot of people put most of the blame for the bad stuff on Vince Russo, and Russo might be part of the problem, but he's not the problem. I mean, Russo has proven that he can write some great storylines under the right conditions. The problem is that he's not in the right conditions, and they're not giving him the editor he needs to filter out the bad stuff that he comes up with. And a lot of the time, he'll come up with a good idea, but the execution of it'll be so flawed that it'll take away from the whole thing. I mean, this main event Mafia angle has been very good so far. The promos have been excellent, the storyline progression has gone at a good pace, but we're starting to see some cracks forming in it now, because I assume the whole point of this is to ultimately have some of these veterans pass the torch to the young guys. But some of these veterans don't really have a torch to pass anymore. And here's where the editor thing comes into play. Because Russo, as creative as he is, has always had his blinders on when it comes to certain people. Kevin Nash is one of those guys. In Russo's mind, Kevin Nash is one of the best superstars in the history of the business. But most of today's fan base sees the guy as an absolute joke who should have passed the torch and retired a long time ago. And to have him do that now doesn't really mean that much, because when you see this guy with terrible knees who's pushing 50 in there with Samoa Joe, you think Joe should just plow right through this guy. And then when he doesn't, it really hurts Joe. And even if Joe does get over on Nash later on at some point, the fact that he ever lost to Nash at all might hurt Joe in the long run more than a win over Nash helps him. And Scott Steiner is at that same place that Nash is, but at least Steiner has shown that he'll put over the young guys when they ask him to. The problem is they don't ask him to do it very often. I mean, they're still trying to push Steiner like he's a dominating force, and he just cannot pull that off convincingly anymore. I mean, if you saw his Impact match with Rhino, Steiner was exhausted after 2 minutes. And to have him go over Rhino like that, to have him go over Samoa Joe like that is just ludicrous. I mean, Kurt Angle, Sting, Booker T, they can beat the young guys as long as the intent is to put them over in the future. Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner, no, absolutely not. They can beat up people outside the ring or backstage or whatever, but inside the ring, they need to be putting the young guys over. Like I said, the general direction of creative right now is a good one, but the execution of it is highly flawed, and someone in management, Jeff Jarrett or somebody, needs to step in and deal with this. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about in this video is the state of the Knockouts division. And this kind of came out of some things I've been reading recently about Gail Kim and about TNA. Basically, the word going around is that there are some people in TNA who think the Knockouts division has been suffering since Gail Kim left. which I only sort of half agree with. Okay, first of all, you got Gail Kim, who you pushed to the moon for a year, who you promoted as the greatest woman wrestler alive. Your words, not mine. And then when it's time to renegotiate her deal, and she asks you to pay her the money that you obviously think she's worth, you lowball her in a contract offer, and then you let her walk out the door to the other company. What did you think was going to happen after that? Did you expect the match quality to go up with your best female worker gone? Second of all, the other part of the problem is that you're starting to push the wrong people. Okay, Gail left an open spot in the title picture, so you elevated Roxy to fill that role, which was the right decision to make, and I think she's done a great job. But then that leaves Roxy's old spot open, and then Salinas is gone too, and now you've got to fill a hole in the undercard. And hence the push of Christy Hemme, who, while she might have improved somewhat, is not going to be producing 4-star classics anytime soon, and Raka Khan, who might have a good look, but so far has been absolutely terrible in the ring. And it really concerns me that there's all these rumors that TNA might be building up to Awesome Kong versus Raka Khan. Why? Because they're the same size? So what? That doesn't mean anything if Raka Khan doesn't have the skills to back it up. So, only half the problem was Gail Kim leaving. The other half was how you tried to fix it. So, what I want to examine here is what the loss of Gail Kim really means. And I don't mean that they lost the quote-unquote figurehead of the Knockouts division when she left necessarily. I'm talking about something probably more important, because with the departure of Gail, it means that the Knockouts division has lost its ring general. Now, obviously, that's going to mean different things to different people, but to me as a wrestling fan, a ring general is someone who can not only take the lead and carry a match, but can also carry their opponent and bring them through the action and elevate the match as a result. Now, that's what Gail Kim was to the Knockouts division. That's what she did. Perfect example. If you watch the Knocked Out DVD, there's a match from Genesis '07. It's the second match in the DVD. It's a fatal 4-way for the Knockouts title. If you watch this match closely, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, of course, Roxy, ODB, and Angelina all did their parts and held up their end respectively. But there are large portions of that match where Gail is basically carrying the action for all 4 of them, and the match was very good because of that. When I say ring general, that's what I mean. And with Gail gone, the women don't really have anyone filling that role right now, and they need someone to fill it, because I think it started to affect the quality of the matches a little bit, at least in the undercard. Now, if you look at the current roster of women, I don't know if there's really a solid candidate there. I mean, Awesome Kong, I don't think is that person. Because while she is one of the best women they have, the fact that she's so huge and so dominating kind of demands that she be booked a certain way. And that doesn't always lend itself to really good competitive matches unless she's in there with someone she has the right chemistry with, and she doesn't have that chemistry with everybody. And the only other likely candidate that I see right now is Taylor Wilde. And I know she's had a lot of criticism from a lot of people since she debuted, but you know what? Screw the critics. I like Taylor. She's proven herself to be a great wrestler, and she still has not had one bad match in TNA. Now, whether or not she could be the ring general for the women is still a question mark. Does she have the raw ability to do it? I think she does. But she hasn't really been tested in that capacity yet, and until she is, the jury will still be out. And since I don't see anyone else on the current roster that could potentially fill that role, I mean, maybe Melissa could, but the Muslim gimmick sort of prevents that, then it's definitely time the TNA did some recruiting. Okay, start watching tapes. Pay a visit to the Shimmer locker room. As I said before, Gail is not the only woman who's left recently, so you do have spots available. And if you need a new ring general for the Knockouts division, off the top of my head, there's 2 clear candidates that you should be going after. Death Ray and Dark Angel. Now, from what I understand, TNA has had an interest in signing Sarah Stock for quite a while now, though it hasn't happened yet. Sarah Del Rey, a lot of people call her the best woman wrestler in the world. And if TNA could get either of them, I think they could easily fill that role that Gail Kim once had. But anyway, I would like to know what you guys think about this. So please leave me your thoughts on which woman from the current roster or from the independents you think could potentially become the Knockouts ring general, and maybe I'll come back to this and revisit it in a future video. But for now, I'm going to wrap this up. I see I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to put an end to this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.